N8n is the no-code automation tool that has been absolutely exploding the past couple of months. It's very much trending right now. Tons of new people are trying out the product. So I found the only person I know that's been using it longer than 2 months, my friend Tomer, who actually has his own consultancy focused on N8n called TechButler.net. So I'm going to interview Tomer, get some of his expertise about the platform so that you all can keep up with that surge in popularity, go try it out, and hopefully build some pretty cool stuff. N8n has been trending lately. I'll throw up a screenshot of kind of like the Google search trends here in a sec. And I've got my buddy Tomer on the line, who is literally the only person in the world that I know that's been using N8n longer than like 2 months. How long have you been using it?
Yeah, I came across this project. It was like 2020, maybe 2019. I've been following it. Me and n8n go way back,
Sweet.
actually. So
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing. So, that's great. I wanted to take a little bit of time, pick your brain a little bit. I know a lot of people are trying this product out right now, and you have the expertise to kind of help guide us all around how do we even approach this. But yeah, maybe we just start with like what kind of what kind of drew you to the product and a little bit around like what your general background is in no code and tech and et cetera.
Sure, yeah. So like most people, I think I came across Zapier maybe early mid 2010s, right? Zapier makes you happier, right? Just being able to like kind of connect services together, get some glue was really, it just really kind of clicked for me all of a sudden, right? And I used it a little bit back in the day, and I did find like a few limitations to it. But nonetheless, it's a great product. It's really really good for what it is. Um, Background about me is I'm a software engineer by trade and by passion, I like to say. Um, and yet there are still like very valid use cases, even as a software engineer, where it makes sense to use some of these no code tools, right? As mentioned, when you're trying to glue together a couple different services, it doesn't always make sense to spin up infrastructure or to write a whole bunch of code around just like when something happens in this service, you want something to happen on a related service or something similar. So these no-code tools are a really great tool. They're just really great for automation for those kinds of tasks. So yeah, I came across n8n. I think as it was advertised as an open source alternative to Zapier. They have what's called Fair Code, which was actually it's not exactly a license, but it's kind of like a methodology for software where the source code is available, and yet there is still like the opportunity for the company behind it to monetize and to actually become a sustainable company. So this fair code concept was actually created by the founder of n8n for this exact purpose. And so having the code always available is just really something that I'm passionate about. It means that it gives you a little bit more flexibility to have something like this available and running.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that. I knew that N8N was like open source and you can tinker with the source code and whatnot, but this whole like kind of fair code sounds like almost like a little bit of like a hybrid model. It's open source, but they can still monetize easily. Um,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
uh,
So
that's pretty cool.
yeah, a lot of the core functionality is open, and then they have things around the edges that are a little bit more enterprisey. SSO or collaborative workflows are things that they can charge money for and like not put on GitHub because for if you want to use the community edition, help yourself. But if you need some extra support or something, you can go to n8n itself and pay them for the cloud service.
Got it. Cool. So you're a software developer. You write code all the time. You also work with N8N. What's your like high level heuristic of like when do I go down the coding path and when do I go down the N8N no code automation path for a problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when it comes to building like actual interactive web applications or something like that, I think one still needs to go the route of actual software development, build something from the ground up, make it useful. again, I really like the analogy of just like glue between services for something like n8n, where when you need to just do a little quick automation here or there to kind of help your workflow or your business workflow get something across the finish line, get something done. Um, yeah.
That's great. So, so you're kind of isolating, in particular, like the integrations piece. These platforms excel at. That's one of the things I think I'm hearing.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, cool.
It's great that n8n, just like Zapier and other similar tools, have a lot of these integrations built into it. And then there's also this sort of they have some integrations that are more open, like an HTTP request or plugging into IMAP so you can read emails, things like that.
So if you're thinking about how you typically approach like a software development project versus an n8n project, is the thought process pretty similar for you? Are you like breaking the problem down in similar ways, or is it kind of different in your mind? Like where do you start for n8n versus software dev?
Yeah, so first of all, you do always want to get to the core of the onion, right? You do want to get to the core of the problem and figure out what it is you're trying to solve to figure out the best way to go about it, right? And then it kind of comes down to sometimes the amount of flexibility you need, right? So it's always the case where the more magic you get, the less flexibility you have when when you stumble across an issue, right? Because the whole idea of the magic is that it obfuscates some of the complexity behind the scenes. Sometimes you do need to actually get to that complexity in order to solve some problems, right? So if you have a very specific business use case, or if you need a lot of different views and things to get the job done, again, I would probably still veer towards old school software development. But if it is if it is a relatively straightforward problem where it's just maybe a couple of CRUD or just some basic workflows, then that's something that n8n might be able to do the job for.
Sweet.
Might be the right for the job. Yeah.
Cool. Appreciate the extra color there. Let's get specific and talk about some n8n workflows that you've implemented in the past, and maybe you can, if you have some on hand you want to share, awesome. If you want to just talk through them, awesome. But maybe do you have a couple examples of some n8n workflows that you thought worked out really nicely?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I have some flows pulled up here that I can talk through a little bit.
Sweet.
Um yeah, so this is called auto rent. So for my business, I had a client who had some rental properties, and they like to keep rent updated in a spreadsheet that looked like this. And we at the time we used apartments.com. I think now it's homes.com. I hear they're the best. But they did not have an API to automatically grab payment information and plug it into the spreadsheet. And so this is one of those use cases where if you are able to leverage an open protocol such as SMTP, IMAP, as in email, um, n8n can help you do the job without needing access to an API. So what we have here is, like, we could see this is the n8n workflow. And this is the n8n running on my server that I have the community edition running. And so we have an email trigger here. And what this means is I uploaded some credentials. Um, and so this is actually can get access to my emails. And so that enables us to kind of receive any payments that come through apartments.com without needing a webhook API or anything on their end, right? So when a payment comes through, we get an email receipt and we can catch it, and then we can bring it into our spreadsheet. So just to do this live real quick, so we can go ahead and take a look at this. I'm just going to forward this message where we have Alice A on 123 Main Street paying, let's say, $1,200 for her rent, and we have Andrew Miller at 456 Fubar Road paying 1,500. So we're
So
going to send this.
high level, the n8n workflow is is it watching an email inbox and watching for emails to arrive?
Correct.
And then
That's
when that
that's the
happens,
workflow
it
that we set up
triggers
here.
the whole series of events.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. Okay.
So we could, yeah, exactly. So we see like the lightning bolt here. It means that it's a email trigger. It's a trigger. So this is what kind of sparks the workflow to start. And that's when it'll go through all of this.
Got it.
So if we actually go through our executions, we could see that this came through just now, succeeded in less than 2 seconds. And we can actually see like all of this information as it went through the whole process, right? So it went through the email. If it is coming to the right email address, and if it is from apartments.com, then we can extract email properties, right? So pretty much we are parsing through the HTML of the email body. And then what's nice with n8n is some of the flexibility that they give you are these kind of code nodes, which you can then build out in pure JavaScript. So you can
Uh-huh.
actually like parse through the email that we got and start building out the data that you want. And then we see we have 2 items that it appended to our Google Sheet. So if we come back here, we'll see all of a sudden Alice paid for March 1,200 and put it right here, exactly where we want it. We go to 456 Fubar Road. We see Andrew right here paid $1,500 and it put it right here. So this kind of flow is this this flow, well, we'll just say it made my client very happy. Instead of every time them getting an email from apartments.com having to manually put it into their spreadsheet, this was able to automatically receive those emails, parse through it, and get exactly the right data that we need and put it right in the proper spot on the spreadsheet.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, you're basically connecting your email inbox to this spreadsheet where you're kind of like managing accounting and whatnot in this completely automated manner that involves like opening emails, reading the content, understanding the content, parsing out information, like fairly straightforward actions for a human, but getting this all automated without, well, I guess you wrote a little code in that one module, but other
Yep.
than that, pretty sweet.
Yeah. And again, this is just I, as a software engineer, just do not like monotonous processes. And if something like this, it's totally doable by a human, but it's a little bit annoying. And it's also error prone, right? So like they could
Right.
fudge some numbers, do a typo, and all of a sudden your accounting is completely off. So this is something that definitely helped them out quite a bit.
Great. Smooth demo too. The demo gods are on our side today. It was
They're
awesome.
on our side today. Yeah, we could do one more, and we could see if we break that, if
Sure.
or not. Um, cool. Yeah. So I have um this other demo that I built in the early days of ChatGPT when you were seeing ChatGPT wrappers pop up left and right. I said, "Oh, I could do that. Let's try that out." So I built what's called questionnaire, where the idea was get a prompt from the user and automatically spit out a Google form for them based on that prompt. And so what we have here is we actually have multiple triggers on the left, right? Trigger again is what starts a workflow. And these are web requests. And you can actually respond to web requests with HTML. And so what that means is you can actually serve up like an application for all intents and purposes through just these workflows. Now, it's not going to be as efficient as if you actually spun up a server and wrote the code yourself, but this is very good for getting like a proof of concept out the door, right? So we have serving up the main page. We have a couple of redirects. And then what we have here is this is where the kind of magic happens, where we actually create the form, we get some code, and then we can see here that we're actually calling OpenAI. We are, again, using some JavaScript to build out the data as we want it. And then here we're pinging the Google Forms API to create a form and then update that form's content. And then we respond to the webhook with some HTML. So we can see that in action here. So this is the webhook that I have serving up the page. We can refresh this just to see that, again, under executions, we could see that this succeeded, right? So this responded with this HTML pretty much. So what we could do here is say something like, 5 questions about how a live n8n demo went, for example. We're going to hit login with Google and create form. We're going to plug the right Gmail account. And then if we come back here to executions, this should be updating here in a second. Here we go. So we have the redirect, the couple redirects running, and then we see this execution that ran for about 8 seconds. And that's because it did have to go to, it did 2 API calls on our behalf, really 3 actually, right? So it went to OpenAI with the user's prompt. We built out the data, and then we pinged Google's form APIs. So this is the response that we got. There's the HTML. Form created, view your questionnaire form here. Let's click on this. And boom, this is the live Google form that we prompted for. So rate your overall experience of the live demo. How easy was it to understand and use? Which features did you find most impressive? 5 questions, just
That's
as
sick.
intended. Yeah. So and again, this was all done very little code, and just a single n8n flow was able to do all of that for us.
So one of the things about this flow that really strikes me, because I've used make.com a lot, right?
Mhm.
And if you go back to your n8n flow, that thing you pointed out at the beginning, where you can actually respond with HTML and serve up a page, um, that's very interesting. I'm not sure if you can do that in make.com. You might be able to. I've never even considered trying to do that.
Right.
That's really pretty creative. Did you kind of stumble into that idea on your own? Did you see someone try that out, or what made you even think to do that?
Yeah, I actually saw someone try it out. N8N actually, they host their own live stream, I think, every now and then. And I used to jump on those just to kind of see what was going on. I'm again very avid follower of and enjoyer of the product, I guess. Um, and yeah, I saw someone do this, and it really kind of blew my mind because once you realize that you can respond to a webhook with HTML,
Yeah.
it really opens the possibilities are kind of endless. And what's more is you can actually respond with JSON as well. So you
Uh-huh.
can actually add a content type of application slash JSON and respond with JSON. And what that means is you can actually build an API entirely within n8n, right?
Right.
Because someone can ping an endpoint, and you can then do whatever calculations you need and respond with JSON, and you now have an API just like that, without needing to spin up extra infrastructure or anything like that.
Talk about rapid prototyping, man.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Another thing I like about this one, there's this phrase, good ideas repeat themselves. Um, Another friend of mine, Nico, who maybe I'll get to interview at some point, he just released a product called Jutu, which is super similar to this. It's
Yeah.
basically like an LLM backed form generator. And you had done this, I guess, I don't know, maybe a year plus ago. But it's just really interesting to see. I think the use case of creating surveys and forms on the fly with kind of natural language context behind them using LLMs is really smart. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. I like that quote. It's one of those things where, like, until Google Forms implements their own version of it,
Yep.
this just kind of makes sense to have a little utility that can do that for you, right? And I've gotten some feedback where it's like, oh well, it's just putting a form together. I could do that in a few minutes. It's like, yeah, you can, but the
Yeah.
thing is, this also can help brainstorm some questions that you might not have thought about,
Yep.
right? And as well as, like, one great use case for LLMs is to solve, like, the blank page problem, right? So instead
Yeah.
of staring at a blank page, you can get something to start with and kind of iterate on from there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're great for providing kind of the clay that you want to mold later, instead of like like you said, the blank canvas, the blank slate. Like, where do I even start? It's usually a
Yep,
pretty big hurdle for people to get over. So
yep,
that's
yep.
cool. Maybe one last topic to dig into is, so you've been doing this a long time. You've built a bunch of workflows. The two you just demoed are super sweet. What about like gotchas, things to watch out for folks that either are coming from a different platform or are new to this whole n8n world?
Yeah, some of the debugging can be tricky at times.
Okay.
Again, they do provide a lot of magic, which again makes it difficult sometimes to get to the bottom of things. So like when using some of those like JavaScript nodes, kind of when you need to build out your own code and like massage the data as you want, some of that debugging is not super trivial. Now, they've made significant changes over the past couple of years. I've worked with this again for years, and it used to be much more difficult than it is now. So now there is again the executions tab where you can view it like almost in real time, the data flow and which nodes are being hit. That was not there originally. So like having that means you could go back and see previous runs and see how they went and where you went wrong or where you can move forward. So that's definitely one of the gotchas. Is debugging sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge. Um, and I would say for that, like they have n8n has a lot of templates on their site, and I think it's just good to play around with some of that stuff and kind of get a feel for how things go and how data flows and things like that.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So if we're debugging an init inflow, we should be patient, is what I'm
Yes,
hearing.
yes, exactly.
Try
Yeah,
to like cultivate all of our patience because it could be a little challenging.
yeah,
Um, that kind of lines up with some of my experience on Make is like the debugging process is a little tricky because like sometimes I don't know where to look to even find the error message. But
yeah,
like it's an error
exactly.
message coming from some other service and it's maybe presented in a funky way, but yeah, that makes sense. And then the other one you called out is utilize the templates as
Yep,
a starting point, like to get examples of how to like set up workflows and stuff.
exactly. And I think that would working through some of those templates and examples will also help you understand kind of how things go, and it might help making debugging things in the future a little bit easier, just kind of knowing how that process works.
Cool. Thank you so much, Tomer, for the masterclass in N8N. This is awesome. It's cool to see some of the things you built. How can
Yeah.
people get in touch with you? You offer N8N services as well.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, happy to help. Yeah, you can reach me. I'm not super active on socials, but you could find me at techbutler.net, and I please put a message in there. I'm happy to help your n8n needs, and yeah,
TechButler.net, everyone. I'll put a link in the description, but Tomer's the guy who's been doing this for a long time. So if you need help with N8N, talk to him. Thanks again, Tomer. Catch you later.
thanks, Andrew. Bye.
Bye.